What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Blerded Out. Of course, we got the new chapter. 1129 is out. We don't talk about that. And I believe, marking today, the day of me recording this, it has been a year since we started the Kuma flashback in the manga. So, obviously, respect to Kuma. Big dog, big goat. So can't wait to see that animated. It's going to be tragic and amazing. I really hope we get some like top tier animators. They have to animate the last chapter of the flashback with, I want the best people in there. I want everybody. You know what? Call in Ishitani, call in Vincent, call in Ota. Get everybody on that episode. I want it to pop. And then we got seasonal talk as well. It's a bit of a light week. The chapter was kind of light. Not a lot of news happening in the anime manga world, at least from my perspective. A lot of the talk has been about DBZ, new game drop. People are loving it. Other than the gameplay I've seen, I haven't touched it, and I probably won't touch it. DBZ is not like my biggest hype tool, so I'm gonna live out the fantasies through everyone else who's enjoying it. And of course, like with the hurricane stuff, like hopefully everyone's making it out safe. Hopefully everyone's staying safe out there. Milton is trying to do a number on Florida, but we persevere. We get through it. First, a word from our sponsors. Thank you for tuning in to Blerded Out. Whether you're listening from YouTube on my channels like Darren King Kuma or Blerded Out Podcast, or one of the many podcast sites like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more, I appreciate your support. If you want to listen to older episodes of the podcast, head on over to Patreon. If you join as a free member, you can watch all the old episodes from the old seasons for free. Plus, there'll be other content that didn't quite make it to an episode or on a YouTube video that you can check out there as well. Your support means the world.
Talking all things, we chillin' like Okiji. Better activate your Byakugan so you can see me. Coming at you left, right, up, down, sideways. Reactions, reviews, maybe even let's plays. On his droid boy, trying to make you laugh, make you smile. We about to set sail, so sit back and stay a while. It's Blerd, get out. Blerd, get out.
And if you have not caught up to the latest chapters of the episode, please know that there will be spoilers ahead.
Spoilers.
Okay, so let's hit the chapter real quick. 1129. Living Dolls. The cover story is still following Yamato and the pilgrimage. This time we have Shinobu and Tama training. Basically, Tama mentioned that she wanted to be a kunoichi at the end of Wano, and that's kind of what we're seeing now. And she even has a sword, which I want to look at deeper later. I don't think it's anything specific. I see that it has a heart on the sheath. Otherwise, I don't see anything specific about the sword itself, but I would like to know where that sword came from. Cutting into the story itself, we get the sun god talking about how basically these living dolls are destroying this civilization. And we're getting some Freudian slips because he's talking about, oh, you guys killed my pet, servants, and you're destroying my room, my temple. So it's like, obviously this is just like a really deep hobbyist. And all these people are being forced to be part of his hobby. I appreciate that Luffy recognizes this and is like, we should try really hard not to destroy everything, which is somewhat out of Luffy's character, I think. Like, I think Luffy is not like intentionally going to try and destroy things, but I think for the most part, he would be pretty neutral on this. But something about me does like that. He's just like, hey, let's try not to mess it up too much. Obviously, he's put some work into this. The giant, whose identity we do figure out by the end of this chapter, starts chasing them through like the little town area as they're booking it towards the back. Nami, who has completely memorized the entirety of the blueprint of the town, chucks it and it's like, all right, I know where to go. Head straight to the back. Which, fair enough. If you're just heading straight back, there's no real need to have a map, because you're just heading in one direction. I assume that map is going to come into handy later. Otherwise, there would be no real point in her memorizing it. Now, as the sun god is trying to capture the Straw Hats, he mentions that this place is a giant detention center and it's made for no one to escape. And the specific wording is to ensure no giant escapes its walls. So this place is apparently constructed to keep giants in check. So I'm wondering if the sun god is in the detention center himself, and this is kind of like his hobby to pass time because he's like stuck in this building. Now, of course, that could be a translation thing. We'll have to see the official when it comes out. As far as I'm reading it now, it seems like this giant is in the detention center and is just making use of his time. So otherwise, it wouldn't really make sense to have the walls be constructed to keep giants in if this was specified for, like, you know, the hobby we're doing here. Sun God eventually catches him in the net. Zoro and Sanji make quick work of that, cut it out, and we on the move again. We get mention of the rabbit again, the ear god, and we actually get the design scheme. And for some reason, I was thinking it was like a more adorable type of rabbit, but the one they show actually looks kind of crazy. I like the design of the rabbit. But yeah, that boy got cooked. He did. And this causes the sun god to kind of go off the deep end. Like, it feels like he's enjoying this. And I mean, he even kind of describes like he's enjoying the thrill of what's happening here. And he mentions evil has spawned and heroes are being born in the world I created. So the world he created is obviously this little toy world of, Legoland. But I do wonder who he defines as evil and who he defines as the heroes. But he is deep into this, like this is role playing to 1,000. He's like, history is being made. The dolls I have, they're creating history, and that's all under my control. And I'm like, bro, calm down, relax. It's not that serious. And he even name drops Hydruden, and we know Hydruden from Dressrosa. We know that Hydruden is part of the new Giant Warrior Pirates. So we know Hydruden. If he knows Hydruden, that means he's in the know, close enough to probably be in the pirates, and it turns out by the end of the story he is. But it seems like he doesn't believe in the Straw Hats as completely as Hydruden does. Now Usopp tries to blow a hole in the wall, doesn't do diddly squat. So obviously Luffy steps up because we need some actual firepower here. And the more this goes on, the more the sun god starts like cackling to himself. Like I said, he's just enjoying this. He's enjoying the entirety of this. I think one of the things is he completely underestimates the Straw Hats, and he mentions like in the chapter that basically they're too weak, and in the world of giants they basically amount to nothing. And he even calls them out by name. So like Hydruden gave him enough info to that he knows exactly who these people are, and he still doubts their abilities, which is crazy to me. And as he's having his moment, Luffy sets up a Gear 4 punch in base, which is something we didn't think was possible. And it's something we saw, I think 2 chapters ago, was Luffy using Gear 4 in base. And it was another one of those things where we're like, okay, there's some kind of mistake or hallucination going on because Luffy can't do that. Apparently he just can, because he's doing it now. So Luffy in base pumps up his arm, Muscle Fusen, and he's setting up for a King Konga. And the fact that he can do this without going full bound man is insane. Where he learned how to do this, how he kind of developed this potential, I have no idea. Because we didn't see this in Wano. And even though he was training, he still went full bound man. I think if he had the ability to not go full bound man and still deliver this kind of like raw potential power, he would have done it versus Kaido, but he did not. So this is a development after Kaido. I mean, you could argue that it was going to be an egghead, but we didn't see an egghead either. So where this came from, I have no idea, but he can do it now. As Luffy's setting up, Nami's setting up as well. And at first I didn't understand what she was talking about, because she was talking about, you can't blame anybody for a natural disaster. And it didn't ring in my head that Nami controls weather for some reason. So I was like, what on earth is she talking about? She's just rambling on. But basically she's setting up an attack for the end of the chapter. And as these two are setting up, we get the flashback of how the Straw Hats ended up in this place to begin with. And we get the reveal that the sun god, the giant that has him trapped in here, is Road. Road is one of the new Giant Warrior Pirates that we saw some time ago. Basically, he's part of Hydruden's crew. And it's exactly like I mentioned. I think Tekken called it completely. Shout out to Tekken, he the GOAT. The build for this person was fairly skinny for a giant. And if you look at Road, he is a really skinny giant. Like he's not, like if you look at Hydruden and you look at Road, you can tell one is like built, and one is just a giant person. And Road is just a giant person. And initially, Road reacts like, okay, I thought they were with the rest of the giant pirates. But apparently they got sidetracked. And it's kind of crazy because you see a bird bringing in the Sunny. And it's like the scope of that is hard to conceptualize, considering that the Sunny is a massive boat, meaning this bird is a massive bird, like a gigantic bird picked up the Sunny out of the water and then flew it to Road. Apparently there's a sleeping mist belt and that's where they passed out at. It would be weird for them to pass through this. I mean, I guess what probably happened is that they got too turned off the green ferry, fell asleep, and then they drifted into the sleeping mist belt, which kept them asleep. Because I think either the giant warrior pirates would recognize that they're heading in that direction and prepare for it, or Nami would recognize that the atmosphere was changing and prepare for it. Either way, I think they would have prepared for it had they not been turned. Had they not been turned off the Henny, they would have been ready. Apparently, Road is not on the same wavelength as Hydruden because he doesn't want to follow humans. He's like, nah, y'all are too weak for us to be following you. But it's also weird because he seems kind of like a fanboy. Like he recognizes everybody and he's like, oh, it's my queen Nami. But also he doesn't want to follow under their footsteps. And it's like, I think he does like them, but from a warrior standpoint and like a pride standpoint, he's like, I'm a giant, so I can't follow any kind of human. And I think that kind of like solidifies that's how he views things, because when we come back from the flashback, he says, you guys will serve under me. So he's like, he's fans, but he doesn't want to serve them. He wants them to serve under him. While that was happening, Nami was setting up Zeus, and Road ends up getting hit with a thunderbolt full power. This is essentially the same thing that hit Big Mom. And while I know Big Mom shook it off, Big Homie here is not Big Mom. So he gonna be feeling that for a little bit. I don't think it's enough to take him out. I mean, he's a giant after all. He has insane durability. So he's gonna be moving around like within the next chapter probably, but it looked like it put some damage on him. And while he's stunned by that attack, Luffy finally launches his Gear 4 King Kong gun. Oh, it's actually just a Kong gun. I misread that. So it's just a Kong gun, which would make sense if he's not using the full form, because he does have to double inflate to do King Kong. But he uses it, punches straight through the wall, and we're free supposedly. We do not get a view of what's on the other side of the wall, which I think is very intentional because I don't think we're in the outside Elbaf world quite yet. I guess there's essentially two scenarios. One, we have made it to Elbaf and we're saving the reveal for a double page spread in the next chapter. Or two, we're still in the detention center and we have a lot to deal with before we actually make it outside to Elbaf. Now, it's hard to tell because Road does mention that the facility was designed to ensure no giant escapes the walls. Even if you were to reach the other side, do you think you have a hope of breaking through? Otherwise, a dead end. This could mean that at that wall, basically, it doesn't lead anywhere because it's an entire facility, or just that Road thinks that they don't have the potential to break through the wall so that it's a true dead end to them. No, it doesn't seem like we're on break, so next chapter is probably going to show us what happens here. I think we're going to get a double page spread of some kind of reveal. Once we get like to Elbaf, we're getting that double page. You can bet on that. But otherwise, that's the end of the chapter. Not a lot happened here. I mean, if you didn't know who Road was, if you don't remember him, then that may shock you. Otherwise, not a lot happened here. Basically, we went from point A to point B. So not a whole lot to discuss. Again, we're in the setup phase where things move kind of slow. The biggest takeaways are probably Luffy using Gear 4 in base, the reveal of Road being the sun god, and honestly, I think that's it. I don't think there's any other huge reveals of this chapter. I am curious to see where this road storyline goes. Because clearly, if, Road is here, we're going to get Gerd and Stanson and Goldberg, or at least I imagine we're going to see all those characters at some point. And I've been waiting to see Gerd for a minute, because I think Gerd has a cool design, especially for a giant. And I believe she is the doctor of the new giant warrior pirates. But I want to see her. The other ones, I kind of want to see Goldberg too. I was curious about them because I think they all came through on cover stories. And I kind of became interested in their character at that point. I would love to see more of them. But let's talk seasonals for a little bit and wrap everything up here. Dandadan is still doing crazy things. Episode 2, while not as wild as episode 1, I would say, I think I liked episode 2 much better. And I didn't dislike episode 1, but episode 2, I vibed with a lot more. Kin having like pseudo control over the granny curse and the design that comes with that, peak. All the way down to like the personality he develops when he's in that mode. I absolutely love that. I need more of that. And the way the story is going, I assume he's going to either keep that power while like cutting off his connection with Turbo Granny, or as the series progresses, he's going to adopt more powers from more people. That seems like the direction we're going in. Because as far as Momo goes, she has like the psychic spirit medium powers. And I think those will only grow as time goes on. I don't think they're going to change as much. Grieving Soul, still good, still loving it. Tino is a gym. I'm liking Cray more and more. Just because he fits the role very well. Like I thought it was kind of just gonna be a dude who was just avoiding everything, but it's like he has particular interests that he's really into, like the relics, for example. He just doesn't want to do any of the fighting. Loner Life is cool. Nothing really popping up in Loner Life yet, but it seems like it's building up to something at some point. And then The Most Notorious Talker. An interesting show. It turned on me. Episode 2 did some fancy stuff where it made me like the main character more. It gave him more personality than I was expecting him to have. Whereas he's not a great person. He has a clear goal in mind, and he has the mentality to step on people to get to that goal, which I appreciate in an MC. I need them to be a little bit ruthless if they're going for the top. And the people he's being ruthless to 100% earned it, so it's not like, he just went out of his way to be ruthless. You just skewing away the plans. It gotta happen. And then I ended up watching something called You Are My Servant, which is adorable. Like, I've only seen one episode. I think it's very cute. I'm going to be adding this one to the roster just because I like it. And I need that balance of like a cute romance comedy. You throw that in there with the craziness of Dandadan. Then you have the isekai. Then you have like the adventure fantasy. Like you gotta mix it all in there. I still haven't started Aristocrat's second season yet, but believe me, that is on the docket. I've seen so many that I actually want to start this season. There's one called Seirei Gensoki, where season 2 starts this season, but I haven't seen season 1. It looks kind of interesting, so I'm going to go back and watch season 1 so I can watch season 2 as well. Mecha Ude, I still want to see that. I don't know why that intrigues me as much as it does, but it does, so now I have to watch it. I mean, it looks like a super-powered mech show, which just sounds cool. There's one called The Do-Over Damsel. I like the more heroine-led shows. Those turn out to be really interesting from a viewer standpoint because they're not as common. And I kind of like the story being centered around a heroine. I haven't started yet, and I haven't really read into the synopsis yet, so I don't know what it's about. I'm gonna give it a 1 episode, 2 episode trial, see how it goes. And I actually have 2 of those this season because there's also I'll Become a Villainess Who Goes Down in History, which is another heroine-led show. Don't know anything about that one either. It seems like the opposite end of the damsel one. Like the damsel was turning into a hero. This one, she seems to be turning into a villain. But then there's also Goodbye Dragon Life. And the healer who was banished from his party is in fact the strongest. And so the docket is weighed down with shows. I most certainly want to get at least 3 eps in on all of them before I make the decision on which ones are going to stick, which ones I actually have time for. I mentioned last time that Dandadan, Grieving Souls, and I think Loner Life were going to be the ones that stay this time around. For now, that does appear to be the case. I think that could change over time. I think, or did I say Aristocrat? Because I know I'm going to watch Aristocrat. That has to happen. I like that show. So throw Aristocrat in there and then throw You Are Miss Servant. That's going to be the top 5 for now. And then once I run the gauntlet of these other ones, I might add some, I might swap some things around. I'll probably know by the time the next ep drops. That is going to do it for me. As always, like, comment, subscribe, smash the like button. And I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.